always believed my marriage to Adrian was unshakable. We had been together for 10 years, built a life together, and raised 2 beautiful children. Adrian was my rock, the man who had stood by me through thick and thin. But lately something had changed. The spark that once lit up our relationship had dimmed, replaced by a quiet, unspoken distance. I told myself it was just a phase, that all marriages go through rough patches. But deep down I knew it was more than that. It started innocently enough. I met Ethan at a work conference. He was charming, witty, and had a way of making me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. At first, our conversations were harmless, just 2 colleagues sharing ideas. But soon, the late-night texts and secret coffee meetings became a regular part of my life. Ethan made me feel alive, and before I knew it, I was falling for him. I tried to convince myself it was just a phase, a way to fill the void I felt at home. But the more time I spent with Ethan, the harder it became to deny my feelings. One evening, after a particularly heated argument with Adrian about our lack of intimacy, I found myself at Ethan's apartment. What started as a comforting hug turned into something more. That night, I crossed a line I never thought I would. The guilt was overwhelming at first, but Ethan's reassurances and the thrill of secrecy kept me coming back. I told myself it was just physical, that I still loved Adrian. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. Adrian wasn't blind. He noticed the changes in me. The way I dressed more carefully for work, the way I was always on my phone, the way I seemed distant even when we were together. At first, he brushed it off as stress, but the nagging feeling in his gut wouldn't go away. One night, while I was in the shower, Adrian's curiosity got the better of him. He unlocked my phone, I still used our anniversary as my passcode, and scrolled through my messages. What he found shattered him. The texts between Ethan and me were filled with flirtation, longing, and plans to meet. Adrian felt like the ground had been ripped out from under him. When I came out of the shower, I found Adrian sitting on the edge of the bed, my phone in his hands. His face was pale. His eyes filled with a mix of anger and pain. "Who is Ethan?" he asked, his voice trembling. Froze. I wanted to deny it, to make up some excuse. But the look in Adrian's eyes told me he already knew the truth. "I'm sorry," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "I never meant for this to happen." Adrian stood up, his fists clenched. "You never meant for this to happen. Do you have any idea what you've done? What this will do to our family?" I tried to reach for him, but he stepped back. "Don't," he said coldly. "Just don't." The days that followed were a blur. Adrian moved into the guest room, and the house was filled with a suffocating silence. The children, sensing the tension, became quiet and withdrawn. I tried to apologize, to explain, but Adrian wouldn't listen. He was too hurt, too angry. Ethan, meanwhile, became distant. When I told him about the confrontation, he grew cold and detached. "This is getting too complicated," he said. "I think we need to take a step back." I felt like my world was collapsing. I had risked everything for Ethan, and now I was losing both him and Adrian. Adrian filed for divorce a month later. The proceedings were bitter and painful, with custody battles and arguments over every little detail. I fought to keep the house, but Adrian refused to back down. In the end, we sold the house and split the proceeds. The children stayed with Adrian during the week, and I had them on weekends. I tried to rebuild my life, but the guilt and regret followed me everywhere. I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the mess I had made. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape the feeling that I had thrown away the best thing I ever had. A year after the divorce, I ran into Ethan at a coffee shop. He was with another woman, laughing and holding hands. When our eyes met, I felt a pang of jealousy and regret. Ethan gave me a polite nod but didn't approach me. It was clear he had moved on, leaving me to deal with the wreckage of my choices alone. My relationship with my children was strained. They were old enough to understand what had happened, and they blamed me for breaking up our family. Adrian, on the other hand, had found a new partner, a kind, patient woman who treated the children like her own. were too big to fix. And some wounds never fully healed. All I could do was live with the consequences of my choices and hope that, someday, I might find a way to forgive myself.